Hi everyone, welcome and thank you for joining us tonight on the MBA Application Essentials webinar. I just want to make sure that you can all hear me properly. Could you please let me know on the left-hand side on the chat if you can hear me well? Is that audio good? Could you just, yes, perfect, wonderful, all right. Great. So everything seems good. Let me first introduce myself. My name is Mirko Chiappe, and I represent Grad School Guru. We are a test preparation center in Lima, in Peru. And tonight we have Amy Geraghty, that is the founder of Grad School Guru, leading this webinar, where she is going to talk a bit more on what the do's and don'ts are when you apply for an MBA program. We here at Grad School Guru train people for the GMAT, for the TOEFL, help them with applications for top schools around the world. And so Amy, leading this project, has tons of years of experience helping students apply to top business schools. I'm glad to see some of our current students attending this webinar, so thank you very much for that. And just so we understand what the structure of this webinar is, first we're gonna talk a little bit about us, and then the webinar will start. You will see several sections on the webinar that include your CV, letters of recommendation, essays, scholarship applications, and during the webinar you're also going to have to answer a few polls that we're going to do, so that you also see how and compare yourself with others in terms of what requirements you think are the most important, or things like, you know, the importance of reference letters and the topics that you need to write on your essay, things like that. On the left-hand side, as you already tried, you have a chat, and the chat is for you to ask any questions you want during or after the webinar. The idea is that we're going to have all the questions listed there, and we're going to reply and go through all those questions at the end of this webinar. So we're going to have a session of approximately 40 minutes, and we're going to leave the last 20 minutes only for Q&A. And then after the webinar is done tomorrow, you're all going to receive an email with the recording of this webinar, so that you don't have to worry about taking notes. If you don't want to, we are going to send you the recording, so you have everything available at one click. Right. So first, Grad School Guru, just briefly, we have almost 3 years training students from all over Latin America. We are located in Lima, in Peru. We collaborate with many top-ranked institutions, training their students, and we also help students with admission advisory, and we have several online services that we provide. So in case you're interested after hearing this webinar about our services, you can go on our website, which is gradschoolguru.com, or write an email to info@gradschoolguru.com to learn more about us. So without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Amy Geraghty, founder of Grad School Guru, that we lead on this webinar. Thank you, Amy, for being with us tonight. The floor is yours.
Okay, thanks, Mirko. Hi, everybody. My name is Amy Geraghty, and like Mirko said, I'm the founder of Grad School Guru. The point of this webinar is really to give you guys an idea of what's expected on the MBA application, the important aspects of the application, and some do's and don'ts throughout the process. I know that when you start applying for an MBA program, it can be quite daunting, because you start looking at the different websites. Every school has a different program. They have different prerequisites. You start looking at rankings. You don't know which ranking to believe. And quite frankly, the process is overwhelming. So what we do at Grad School Guru is help our students get a better idea of what schools are right for them, and then we help with the application process. We help with all aspects of the process, the CVs, the transcripts, essays, everything that that the schools require. And we also put students in contact with different schools because we have many contacts at schools all over the world. So this webinar is based on a lot of my personal experience throughout the last 4 or 5 years advising students in the application process. Here are just some examples of schools that my students have been admitted to. And I've helped them throughout every step of the process, and I've seen students get accepted, I've seen students get rejected, and so I have a good insight on what schools are looking for. We also, like Mirko mentioned, work with lots of institutions all over the world, with admissions directors from many different schools, and they share with me lots of times reasons why students get rejected, what exactly they're looking for. So I hope that I can offer you some of that insight. And like Mirko said, if you have any questions at all throughout the webinar, please write them in the chat area. And you won't be able to see all the questions, but at the end, they come to us directly, and I'll answer any questions you have. So the first thing that you want to do when you're looking for, when you are deciding which schools to apply to, is to choose a range of schools that really fit you. A lot of times students come to me and they say, Amy, I want to apply to, the top 10 schools. And where do they get these top 10? Usually US News Ranking or Financial Times. They go to the website, find the top 10 and say, boom, I want to apply to all these. Okay, well, that's not the best strategy because every school is not a good fit for every person. And just because it's in the top 10 ranking of, a publication doesn't mean that it's the school for you. So what's really important is to find a school that fits you. Sorry, I just had a comment saying that the audio is bad. Can you guys still hear me? Is the audio working? Yes, okay, good. So you want to find schools that are a good fit for you. Now, when you're looking, it's good to use the rankings pages as well. They are a good standard for business schools. However, they're not the only thing that you should consider. First of all, you want to consider the fact if you're qualified or not to go to the school. So some of the top schools, they're super competitive, and they only accept a small percentage of people. So maybe in Stanford, for example, they accept 5% of their students. So when you apply for an MBA program, you spend a lot of money. You spend approximately $150 per application just for the application fee. Then you spend money translating your documents. You spend time and effort writing your essays, asking for letters of recommendation. Maybe you pay for an admission advisory service, and you spend a lot of time paying for these applications. But if you are not qualified to go to the school, then you're basically wasting your money. So honestly, you need to sit down and think about, are you qualified? You need to look at the statistics of the new classes that are entering each year and see if you can compare with these students. If not, then maybe it's better to wait a year or two before applying if those schools are really your dream schools. The GMAT is another point of comparison. In a minute, we'll look at the average GMAT scores in some schools, and you want to make sure that you have around 35 points of that average. If you don't, then you're really in the bottom 10% of the accepted group, and that 10% has to be extraordinary and have a special case, an amazing story, or something really amazing about them to be admitted with a much lower average GMAT score. Another thing you want to pay close attention to is the actual curriculum of the school. Every school has something that they're known for, something that they focus on in their curriculum. Not every MBA curriculum is the same. In fact, most of them are quite different. So you want to make sure that you're going to a place that offers you what you want. If you are looking for a case study approach, you want to apply to schools that use the case study approach. If you are looking for something that's very heavily quantitative, you want to go to a school that's more focused on quantitative. This also helps for when you're writing your essays, because they will understand if you actually read their website and did your homework and wrote things about the school that you actually are interested in. Another thing you want to pay attention to is if the place that you want to work or the industries that you want to work in, if they recruit from the school that you're looking at. Many times schools will directly go to the graduating class. Companies will go directly to the graduating class and recruit from there. And these statistics are usually on the school's websites, so you can look and see like what your dream job is and see if these kinds of jobs that people are getting who are graduating from the school. Another good tip is to go to LinkedIn and just type in, I don't know, for example, Wharton MBA, and look at all the people who have Wharton MBA on their LinkedIn profile, and you can see what jobs they're doing now. And you can see, does that fit your profile? Is that something that you would be interested in doing? So then you can sort of find where you fit into the MBA spectrum. And finally, you want to make sure that you feel comfortable at the school itself, not only in the school, but also in the city that the school is located in. Every school has a different environment. You know, NYU is not a campus at all. It's a building in the middle of New York City, about 15 blocks from Wall Street, in the middle of everything. Whereas Duke is, you know, in the countryside, in a small, quiet town, on a large campus with lots of sports and things like that. So that's something, too, that you want to take into consideration, because this place is going to be your home for the next 1 to 2 years. So you want to make sure that you fit in well, because this is where you're going to spend a lot of time. Okay, so the format got a little weird there, but the main things that the schools focus on, first of all, are your university grades, the grades that you got in school. This can be difficult for international students because there's not a standardized scale of grading throughout the world. So it's important to have other parts of your application very strong, so that schools, if they don't know how to compare your grades with grades from American or European institutions, they can have other ways to evaluate you. Your GMAT score is very important as well, your CV, letters of recommendation, your essays, and if you pass to the next stage of the application process, you will usually be required to have an interview, in which you may have to travel to the school, or they may do it via Skype or telephone. And not all programs require this step, but a lot of them do. Okay, so to talk briefly about the GMAT, I just want to play this video. I hope it works. So a few months ago, we had the director of admissions from McGill here visiting, and I just asked him how the GMAT is important to their school for international students, and this is what he said. Oh, wait. No, hang on. Technical difficulties. Okay, so apparently it won't play. But what the video says is, it's the director of admissions of McGill talking, and he says that the GMAT is quite important because since there's no way to standardize grades for international students, the GMAT does that for them. So it gives like a level of standardization which they can then compare you with people from all around the world. So that's why the GMAT becomes such an important part of your application profile, because it gives them a point of comparison that's universal. Okay, so to talk a little bit about the GMAT, I mentioned before that it's important to be within 35 points of the average GMAT of the school you're interested in. Here are just a few of some of the top schools. And you can see they're all 700 or above. So if you're looking to get to apply to one of the top either Ivy League schools or top 10 ranked in the Financial Times or US News, you will have to aim for around 700. Now you can see that the range goes to a little bit lower. It starts from a little bit lower, and these are these exceptional cases that I mentioned before. Yes, they may admit 1 or 2 people with a lower GMAT, but again, you have to be extraordinary. You have to have done something amazing, discovered the cure to a disease, or worked with the president or something to make you super special, for them to overlook a poor GMAT. So many people apply to these programs that the GMAT is a good indicator of where they need to make cuts. So if they get 10,000 applications and they have many qualified people, then what they'll do is they'll make a cut based on the GMAT. They'll say, okay, anyone who got less than 600, goodbye, and now we're just going to look at this group. So it's a way of whittling down the best candidates. So really, you need to make sure to spend that time studying for the GMAT. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is the CV. Now, here in Peru, people have a tendency to make their CVs a million pages long and mention every little thing that they've ever done in their life. This is not what you want to do for MBA applications. You want to be very clear, very short, and concise. Usually, they prefer to have the resume fit on one page. That's sort of like the norm. However, there are cases where if it goes onto 2 pages, it's not the end of the world, especially if you are doing an MBA later and maybe you have 10 years of work experience, or if it's for an executive MBA and you have maybe 10 to 15 years of work experience. Obviously, it's going to be difficult to fit it on a page. Even so, try to do it. Put the most important things, and make sure to highlight your accomplishments. Many people forget about this. Many people just put what they did, their day-to-day duties, their responsibilities, but they forget to mention things that they actually achieved. These programs are looking for people who add value to companies and organizations. So you want to show how you have added value in the places that you have worked, and you want to show that with data. So you want to be able to say, maybe you cut costs in a company or something. So you want to say like by what % you did or how you did it. Or maybe you increased productivity in some way. You want to explain how you did that. And if you have the hard data, the numbers, then it's even better because you can show quantitative data of how you have added value to a company. So keep in mind to highlight those aspects on your CV. Some important things to include, you want to make sure that you include, obviously, your work experience, your education. Keep in mind that whatever you put under education, you will need to provide a transcript for. So if you did a bachelor's in economics, you'll need your transcripts for that. But maybe you did like a diploma or something, or a certificate in finance at another school, you will also need to supply a transcript for that if you put it on your CV. So make sure that you're ready to do that. Obviously, you want to show them all the education you have, so make sure that you can get the transcripts for those extra things as well. You also want to put any awards that you've ever received, either at university or at work, or in general. Don't put things from high school. I know it's tempting, some people who won awards in high school or championships or things like that, they want to put them, but you don't want to put anything from high school. Keep it from university until now. Any publications that you've done, many people publish their thesis, or maybe they write an article for the local newspaper or something like that. Anything like that, put that on as well. And volunteer experience. You want to come off as a well-rounded person. Schools like to see people who are balanced. They don't want to see someone who's only work. So it's good to show that you have a different side to you, that you care about the community, and if you've participated in any community service or volunteer experience, it doesn't have to be typical, building houses in a poor neighborhood. That if you did that, that's great. But some people don't have those opportunities. But it could be something simple as organizing a football tournament at your school or something like that. Any sort of extracurricular activity that shows that you've gotten involved in the community, that helps. And some people like to include at the end a tiny little one sentence about interests and hobbies. Maybe you're a black belt in karate. Maybe you are on the, cricket team or something, or maybe you played football for your university's club or something like that. You can also include that because it gives sort of another layer to you. You don't want to spend a big portion of the resume, but a tiny bit. Now I'm going to share a file with you now, if it works. Harvard Business School has a CV template that they use, and they tell their graduates to use. And I use this template with my students because I think it's a very concise and clear way of presenting the CV. So I'm going to try and share this with you now. Let me see if this works. Okay. So hopefully, in the chat, I hope I just sent, I'm hoping I just sent the HBS resume template. The format might be slightly weird because I changed it from Microsoft Word to Pages to PDF. So the format might be slightly off, but the general template is a good way to start. You don't have to use that exact format, but it gives you an idea of how you could format it. Okay, so now moving on to the letters of recommendation. So this is, I receive a lot of questions about the letters of recommendation because many people don't really know where to start. So first I'm going to ask you a quick poll. Just a quick poll. If you were to ask of someone who you think could write the best letter of recommendation for you, who would you choose? So just a quick poll. Okay, so we have a couple people voting. So many times people who come to me say, okay, I want to get, my dad knows the brother of the roommate of the CEO of the company where I work, and he can give me a letter of recommendation. Now, this happens a lot, and it's true. I even had one student tell me that she could get the president of Peru to write a letter of recommendation for her because there was a way that she could get it. Now, it may sound impressive that the president of the country or the CEO of a company can write you a letter of recommendation. It may sound impressive, but the actual letter is not going to be impressive. What you need is somebody who knows you and who has seen your work and who can write something meaningful. And somebody who doesn't know you at all, but who is doing a favor for a friend, is going to write something generic. So even though it's tempting to try to go, to the big boss, try to get someone who actually knows you. Usually this is going to be your direct supervisor or somebody who is above you, who has worked closely with you and can give tangible examples. At some schools, they do ask for a colleague or a peer to write a letter for you, but that's not usual. So in some cases, you may ask a colleague, But usually you want to ask your direct supervisor, and sometimes you also want to ask a teacher from school. I don't think I had that on the poll. But a teacher from school is also another good person who can write a letter. But for MBAs, it's good to, if you can, keep them both professional and not so much academic. What's really important is that the person who says the things can give actual examples. It's really easy to go on Google and Google letter of recommendation example, and you can find 1,000, 1,000,000 generic letters that say, you know, this person is a great team member, he has good communication skills, and is detail-oriented, right? A lot of those cliched phrases that we hear a lot of the time. That will mean nothing to the admissions committee. They can hear that from anyone, about anyone. They're not going to get to know you at all. You need to choose someone who's going to write a real letter and give real examples. So if they say that you have good communication skills, they need to give an example. In the presentation that he did for company X, he stood out when he spoke with the shareholders because of X, Y, and Z. So you want real, tangible examples. Now, a lot of times it happens where my students will go ask their bosses for the letter of recommendation, and their bosses are very happy to write them. They really want to help, but they have no time. So what do? They say, you write it for me and I'll sign it. This is very common. Unfortunately, it's not the best thing that could happen. It's much better if the actual person writes it themselves, because it shows that they took like some extra effort to take the time to sit down and write things about you. But I know that it's sometimes impossible. These people are extremely busy and they don't have time to sit down and write a bunch of letters. So in the case that you do have to write the letters, and this happens a lot with my students, and I help them when they do have to write the letters themselves, but you want to make sure that you sit down with the person. Even if they're writing the letter themselves, you still want to sit down with them and make sure that you express your goals to them, and so that they know and they understand why you're doing an MBA, so that can come across in the letter. Because sometimes the letters of recommendation won't match up to what you say in your essay, and the admissions directors will assume that you didn't even speak. So you want to make sure that there's some sort of coordination there. Okay. Now, moving on to the essays. The essays are probably, the most daunting part of the application process. The essays are very particular to each school. They require a lot of thought, and they cannot be a generic essay that you copy and paste for each school. So first, before I get into this, I'm going to take another quick poll. Okay. So please answer this question. What's your main reason for doing an MBA? Okay. So we have some people who, most people look like they're doing an MBA in order to expand their knowledge, and then we've got some people interested in networking and international experience as well. So back to the essays. So you really want to know why you're doing an MBA before you even look at the essays, and why you're choosing this school as well. So each school has different essay questions, and the essay questions that the schools give really reflect the profile of the school. You'll notice that each school has their own way of asking a question, and you want to answer it based on the profile of that school. So many times my students say, but can't we just change the name of the school and just put the same essay? No, you can't. Each essay has to be different. There may be parts that you can, change a bit, like, your basic goals and things like that can be used for everything, for different schools, but you really need to tailor the essay to the school that you're applying to. So for that, you want to make sure that you do your homework. Like I said before, when you're finding if these schools are a good fit for you, you want to make sure that you know about the school as well, so that when you're writing the essay, that comes across. Another thing is that you want to be personal. You want to tell a story that's interesting. This is hard for a lot of people because what they have a tendency to do is sort of regurgitate what's already on their CV. So they'll say, I graduated from this university in 2005, and then I got a job here where I got promoted to this job, and I worked there, and then I did this. That's not what you want to do. You want to tell a story that's interesting. This is really where you're going to differentiate yourself from other candidates, and the last thing that you want to be is boring. So you have to think, what makes you different? What makes you unique? Why would this school want you? And that's what needs to come across in the essay. It should be something, it could be something weird. It could be something different. It could be, something that doesn't necessarily have to do with your professional goals, but more of a personal aspect to yourself. Usually the schools will have one question that's more personal and one question that's more professional. But in both of them, you still want to get you across. And that's what's really important. So here are some examples of some questions that some schools have asked. So for the first one here, we have Yale. And their question is, the Yale School of Management educates individuals who will have deep and lasting impacts on the organizations they lead. Describe how you have positively influenced an organization as an employee, a member, or an outside constituent. So with Yale, if you have done your research and you know about Yale, Yale is a school that looks for people who are wanting to change the world. They're really big in the nonprofit sector, NGOs, that kind of stuff. Their MBA is really geared towards those kind of people. So this is very clear in this question here. They're looking for these sorts of people who can make changes in the world. So here's where you want to show Yale that you are that kind of person. You want to show how you can have a lasting, sustainable change or impact on an organization. So you can see that the questions that the schools ask also give a little clue about their personality. Berkeley asks, if you could choose one song that expresses who you are, what is it and why? Now, some people are baffled by this question. They think, why would an MBA program want to know something like this? But this is an example of a question that allows you to be personal, to make it meaningful, to show them something interesting about you, something unique, something quirky. This question is one of my favorite questions to help my students with because it's fun. And it's really cool to see some of the things that people think of. And that's really what you want to do in these essays is be creative. Because they're not looking for cookie cutter, just high grades, cookie cutter people. There's tons of people like that. They're looking to create a unique, diverse class in the MBA program. So you want to show them many different aspects of yourself. Stanford asks, what matters most to you and why? This, I think, is one of the scariest MBA questions that there is out there because it's very open-ended and it can be very personal. But I think the more personal it is, the better, actually, because it gives them an eye into who you are as a person, not just numbers on paper or a GMAT score or a CV, but actually who you are as a person. So even though it's kind of an intense question, it really gives you a chance for Stanford to get to know you. And it's giving you a huge opportunity to make them say, wow, I want that person here. I want to know who this person is. And then NYU, please describe yourself to your MBA classmates. You may use almost any method to convey your message, words, illustrations. Feel free to be creative. So another example of a question that's really asking to get to know you and something interesting about you. Now, these schools are serious schools, you know, Berkeley, Stanford, Yale, NYU. These are serious schools with very intense curriculums and stuff, but you can tell that it's not all about, you know, business, GMAT, numbers, grades. They also want to see the other side of you. So these questions are really your opportunity to shine, to let them into who you are as a person, where you come from, what's your background, something personal. Many people are afraid to do it. They think that going too personal is going to sound weird or awkward, but no, it's not. They want to know who you are, so use that opportunity. Okay, most schools then also have a version of what I call the goals essay, which is basically, what do you want to do after the MBA? And here you can see many schools who have written a question similar. So in Wharton, what do you hope to gain both personally and professionally from the Wharton MBA? For Tuck, what are your short and long-term goals? Why do you need an MBA to achieve these goals? Why are you interested in Tuck specifically? For Berkeley, tell us about your experience. Tell us about your path to business school and your future plans. How will the Berkeley Haas experience help you along this journey? For Columbia, through your resume and recommendations, we have a clear sense of your professional path to date. What are your career goals going forward, and how will the Columbia MBA help to achieve them? And for NYU, why pursue an MBA at this point in your life? What actions have you taken to determine that Stern is the best fit for your MBA experience? What do you see yourself doing professionally upon graduation? So all of these questions are basically asking, what are you going to do after? And what do you want to do after? And how is this MBA going to help you do that? So this is another really important essay question, because you have to prove to them that this MBA is what you need to achieve your goals. Your goals have to be super clear. So many people say, okay, I want to work in finance, in a big finance company, or I want to become the CEO or something like that. But that is not an action. You want to put action into your goal as well. So it's great to pick the industry. It's great to pick the function, but you also need some sort of an action. And what's great to do is to think of a point in your professional career where you couldn't do something, or you were limited in doing something because of a lack of knowledge, or a lack of network, or a lack of contacts, or a lack of experience, or maybe a lack of management skills, some sort of a lack that limited you professionally some way at some point in your life, in your professional life. So I don't know, maybe you were working on a merger and acquisition, and you on a consulting project, and you wanted to advise the shareholders of a certain thing, but you were unable to because you didn't have the finance skills to calculate something, for example. Or maybe you were asked to lead a group to do a very important project, but maybe your background is mostly finance and you didn't have those managerial skills of organizing a team, of working, delegating, working together as a team, so maybe it wasn't as successful as it could have been. Think of past experiences and use those to anchor your goals in. So if your goal is to be able to manage teams more effectively, use the past example where you weren't able to do that and show how this MBA will give you those will give you those tools and those skills to be able to do that in the future. So you want to be very clear and very specific about your goal, because keep in mind that these MBA programs, they depend on statistics of their graduates. So if you graduate and you don't get a job after because you don't really know what you want to do, and so you're kind of just figuring it out, they don't want you. They want someone with a clear goal, who knows what they want to do, and who will have lots of job prospects when they graduate, because that is helpful for them, because it helps their statistics and it helps their ranking. So you are also, in a way, a number for them. So prove to them through this essay that you will achieve your goals through this MBA, and if you can convince them, then they're going to want you at their school. So that's something very important to think about, is your goals. So when you're writing these essays, don't just start writing. Make some lists first, brainstorm, think about it. If you were to write your CV in 10 years from now, what would you hope to be on that CV? And what would those bullet points underneath the industry and the function, those bullet points of those things that you do, and those the responsibilities that you have, and the accomplishments that you have on your resume in 10 years from now, what else would you have on their resume? That's your goal. Those are your goals. And those are the things that you want to get across. So they need to be very specific. So to basically sum up, I mean, also every little thing helps that you can do. Any sort of contact that you can have with the school over time helps. Attend any events that you can. If you're here in Lima, we have events often here at Grad School Guru. London Business School is coming next Friday, for example, to meet with us here. All of those little events where you can talk with the admissions advisor, ask questions, just get your name sort of in the air. That helps a lot, because you'll be surprised. Many admissions advisors I've talked with, they remember people. They remember people's names. They'll say, oh, I remember your student that I met, so-and-so, he applied, and we're reading his essay now. So it is really important to make contact with them. Email them. Don't email them silly questions that are easy to Google, but something, meaningful. Email them. Ask them a question. If you can visit, excellent. It's really helpful to be able to visit schools, because you can use that in your essay as well. You could say that you visited the school and that you really felt comfortable there and that you met so-and-so. If you can talk with alumni, that's also great, because you can mention that in your essay as well. I spoke with so-and-so, an alumni from the school, and he explained how the class, whatever, helped him improve, whatever, etc. So every little thing that you can do will improve your chances to being admitted. So that's pretty much it. Tomorrow we're going to be sending you this recording, and I'm also going to send you a survey with a profile to fill out. If you're interested in getting a free profile evaluation by me, just for me to take a look at your profile and at some of the schools that you're interested in applying to, you can have a free consultation with me. And of course, if you're ever interested in admission advisory services, getting help with your essays, with your CV, letters of recommendation, anything like that, feel free to contact me at amy@gradschoolguru.com or visit our website, and we'd be happy to give you any information. So we've had some questions coming in throughout the webinar, and if you have any other questions right now, please feel free to put them in the chat. So I'll just start with a few questions. So we have one question here coming in from someone in Colombia who says, what's the process like to apply for scholarships? So scholarships are an interesting topic for MBAs, because the assumption is if you're doing an MBA, you're probably going to make a lot of money afterwards, so you can afford to maybe take a loan to do your MBA. However, there are schools that offer scholarships. Mostly the international MBAs offer more scholarships. The the American MBAs don't tend to offer that many scholarships, but the international ones do. And it depends. It depends on your situation. Sometimes they have merit-based scholarships, which are if you have a high GMAT score or if you have high scores from your university grades. And some have need-based financial aid, whereas if you show that you have a financial need and that you wouldn't be able to do an MBA without some help, then they may be able to give you money as well. But usually sometimes you may have to write an essay, an extra essay, but usually you're considered for scholarships when you apply. It just depends on your scores. Okay, we have another question here from Mexico. Does your service include scholarship essays? So our service that we offer at Grad School Guru is all inclusive. So you can email us for more details, but it includes everything. It includes helping you choose the right schools, help with scholarship essays, help with the normal essays, making your CV, helping with the letters of recommendation, etc. Any other questions? Okay, we have one here from Brazil. What's the main reason students get rejected from MBA programs? Well, this is sort of a big question, but really it depends on a lot of things. The main thing is if the school thinks that you're not a good fit for them, then they won't take you. If you don't fit in with their environment, with their curriculum, with their profile, then they'll reject you. Another reason is having a low GMAT score. Sometimes having not enough work experience. However, there are some schools that you don't need work experience for. So it depends. Again, you have to do your homework to check what the average work experience is. Also, of course, essays that are not insightful, essays that are just repeating your CV, or essays that are copied from the internet. Believe it or not, some of the admissions directors that I've worked with have told me that they've had applications where, because of course they run the essays through a software to check that you haven't copied the essay from Google somewhere. And you'll be surprised at how many people actually just take an essay from the internet and put it in their application. And of course, that would immediately get you rejected from any school you apply to. Okay, any last questions before we finish up for the night? Okay, so we have another one here. If I'm interested in a career change, but I'm not yet sure about my area of interest, what should I put in the professional goals essay? So the career change goal is tricky because on one hand, an MBA is a perfect way to make a career change because it's giving you all the skills that you need to make a career change. On the other hand, it's risky because of what I mentioned before about that you want to be sure that you can achieve your goals after. So what you should do is be very honest. Be very honest in what you want to do. If you're not sure of the industry that you want to work in, maybe you're sure of what things you want to do or what kind of company or something like that. That you can give more of an insight to. So you want to be honest, but you also want to make sure that they know that you're going to get a job when you graduate. So you don't want to be too wishy-washy, but you do want to be honest. If you're planning to make a career change, the MBA is the perfect place to do it. But you want to be sure to explain how exactly the MBA will help you make the career change. Maybe your goal is to actually learn more about the different fields in general to decide what you want to do. That's acceptable. And you can mention that in your essay as well. We have another question here. If our essays have to match the university's values, do the recommendation letters have to match these same topics? Do they have to show that we fit with a certain university? So if possible, Yes. It's good to talk to your recommenders, like I said, about what they can write about and what schools you're applying to and why you want to go to that school. So if you really, really want to go to Kellogg, for example, because you think that their program is really unique, et cetera, you should reiterate this to your recommender so that when he or she is writing the letter, they have that in mind. And obviously, you don't want the recommender to repeat what you said in your essay, but you want the general idea to come across. But what's most important about the letters of recommendation is that they show clear examples of things that you have done that show a certain quality that this school is looking for. Okay, any last questions before we stop? So like I said, tomorrow we're going to be sending you this webinar, the recording. And for those of you that haven't yet, download the resume template that I sent you earlier. And I'm also going to be sending you a form in case you would like to have a free consultation about applying to any MBA program. So it's a survey. It'll take you about 10 minutes to fill out, just with some information about your job and things like that. And then I'm going to have a look at it and then send you an email or maybe have a Skype conversation to talk about your goals. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. I hope that I was able to offer you some sort of help, and I hope that what I said helped you and was insightful. And again, feel free to email me if you have any other questions. And if you are in Peru, please come visit us at Grad School Guru. And thank you for joining us tonight. Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.